When I woke up that Saturday morning, I expected a quiet weekend. My wife and I had plans to fix our garden fence and maybe grill later. But the moment I stepped outside, I froze. Our backyard, our private backyard, looked like a wedding venue. White folding chairs lined up in rows across the grass. A massive floral arch stood near the fence. Tables were being decorated with candles and fine china. A catering truck was parked in my driveway, blocking my car. And strangers were walking around like they owned the place. At first, I thought it was a setup mistake. Maybe they had the wrong address. So I approached one of the decorators. "Excuse me," I said. "What are you doing here?" The woman smiled politely. "Oh, the HOA approved this space for today's ceremony. You must be the homeowner. Don't worry, we'll clean up after the wedding." My jaw nearly dropped. Approved? The HOA approved my private property for someone else's wedding? That made no sense. I stormed to the front of my house, where I found HOA President Linda Price, clipboard in hand, barking orders like she was directing a movie set. "Linda!" I shouted. "Why is my backyard being used for a wedding?" She turned around, clearly annoyed. "Oh, John, relax. It's just for one afternoon. My niece's venue canceled last minute and your yard is perfect. I signed off on it under community emergency use." I was speechless. Community emergency use? That clause was meant for fixing flood damage or safety work. Not hosting 100 guests and a DJ in someone's backyard. "You can't just do this," I protested. "This is trespassing." Linda crossed her arms, smiling smugly. "You'll get free lawn maintenance and a thank you gift. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." By then, trucks were unloading speakers and lighting equipment. The smell of catering food filled the air. I felt my blood boiling as I realized she wasn't asking. She was taking. I tried calling the police, but the dispatcher said it was a civil matter. So, I grabbed my phone and started recording everything. The setup, the guests, even Linda's smug face. If she thought she could use my property like her personal park, she had another thing coming. Because by the end of the day, I wasn't just angry and I was ready to fight back. By noon, my quiet suburban street had turned into chaos. Cars lined both sides of the road. Guests in fancy clothes were walking straight through my gate, and a live band was tuning their instruments on my patio. I stood on my porch, gripping my phone, recording every second. I wanted evidence. If Linda, the HOA president, thought she could bully me into silence, she was in for a surprise. "Excuse me, sir," one of the caterers said as he brushed past me, carrying trays of champagne glasses. "Can you move?" "You're in the way." I nearly laughed. "I'm in the way? On my own property?" Then I spotted Linda again. She was wearing a bright blue dress, shouting instructions at everyone like she was the queen of the neighborhood. Her niece, the bride, was posing for photos near my old oak tree. My oak tree! The same one I'd planted with my father 20 years ago. I walked straight to Linda. "This ends now," I said, my voice shaking. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, John, don't be dramatic. We'll be done by evening. You'll hardly notice a thing." I clenched my fists. "You're trespassing, Linda. You and everyone here, leave, now." Instead of leaving, she turned to the crowd and loudly announced, "Everyone ignore him. He's just being grumpy as usual." A few guests even laughed. I felt humiliated. That's when I had an idea. If she wanted to turn this into a show, I'd give her one. I went inside, turned on my sprinklers, and aimed every single one toward the yard. Within seconds, water sprayed across the neatly arranged chairs, soaking the white covers, the decorations, and half the guests. Screams filled the air as people scattered. The DJ's speakers sparked, and one of the catering tables collapsed under the weight of a soggy cake. Linda's jaw dropped. "Are you insane?" she shrieked. "Oh, I'm perfectly sane," I shouted back. "Just watering my lawn?" She stomped toward me, fuming. "I'll report you to the HOA for property damage." I laughed bitterly. "You already broke into my property. Be my guest." The chaos didn't stop there. Someone called the police, and when the officers arrived, I explained everything. The unauthorized use, the decorations, the recording I had. The officers ordered everyone to leave immediately. Linda tried to talk her way out of it, claiming, I had given verbal permission. But the videos I showed told a very different story. By the time the guests cleared out, my yard looked like a hurricane had hit it. Torn ribbons, broken chairs, and muddy footprints everywhere. And that's when I decided I wasn't letting this go. The next morning, I was calling a lawyer. The morning after the wedding fiasco, my backyard looked like a battlefield. Muddy footprints, crushed flowers, a broken fence, and an expensive mess I never agreed to host. I spent the entire morning taking photos for evidence. The ruined lawn, the damage to my patio tiles, even the tire marks from the catering trucks. Then I called my lawyer, Sarah Kim, a no-nonsense attorney who specialized in property rights. "John," she said after hearing the story, "what they did is blatant trespassing and property misuse. You have video proof, right?" "Every second," I said proudly. "Good," she replied. "Then we'll make them regret ever touching your lawn." But before Sarah could even file the paperwork, Linda and the HOA struck first. That afternoon, I found a bright orange notice taped to my front door. Violation notice, community misconduct and death, property damage. According to the letter, I had disrupted a community event, damaged HOA property, and owed a $2,500 fine for behavior unbecoming of a member. I nearly laughed out loud. They were trying to fine me on my own property for stopping their illegal event. I stormed into the next HOA meeting, where Linda sat at the head of the table, acting like nothing had happened. Her smug smile returned the moment she saw me. "Well, well, look who's here," she said sweetly. "I hope you've come to apologize for ruining my niece's wedding." "Apologize?" I shot back. "You should be apologizing to me for trespassing, vandalism, and harassment. My lawyer will handle it from here." The room went quiet. Some neighbors avoided eye contact. Others whispered under their breath. One board member, Tom, nervously adjusted his glasses. "Let's all calm down," he said. "Maybe we can settle this privately." Linda slammed her folder shut. "No! He flooded a community event. He owes the HOA for the damages." I grinned. "Actually, Linda, you owe me. I've got police reports, security footage, and recorded conversations proving you authorized the event without permission. And trust me, my lawyer can't wait to show them to a judge." For the first time, I saw her smile falter. Just a little. That's when I knew I had her cornered. But Linda wasn't done yet. A few days later, I started receiving anonymous complaints from the HOA. Noise violations, unkept yard warnings, even a claim that my dog was aggressive. It was obvious she was trying to retaliate. But what she didn't know was that Sarah had already filed the lawsuit, not just against her personally, but against the entire HOA board. And this time, the fight was going public. 2 months later, the courtroom was packed. The HOA board sat on one side, led by a very nervous-looking Linda Price. On the other side sat me and my lawyer, Sarah, calm and confident. I'd waited weeks for this moment. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The case, John Miller versus Greenridge Estates HOA, was about to begin. Sarah opened with a clear, powerful statement. "Your Honor, the HOA President unlawfully entered my client's private property, hosted an event without consent, and caused significant property damage. Not only that, but they attempted to fine and harass him afterward to cover their tracks." The judge nodded slowly, flipping through the stack of photos and reports. Sarah had submitted every muddy footprint, every broken chair, every message from Linda. Then it was Linda's turn. She stood pretending to be calm but visibly sweating. "Your Honor," she began, "this was simply a misunderstanding. The homeowner verbally agreed to let us use his yard. We even offered him compensation afterward." Sarah smirked. "Let's test that claim." She pressed a button, and on the courtroom monitor appeared a video, my own recording from that morning. Linda's voice rang through the speakers. "Oh, John, relax. It's just for one afternoon. My niece's venue canceled and your yard is perfect." There was no mention of permission, just arrogance. The courtroom went silent. The judge leaned forward. "So, Mrs. Price, when exactly did he agree?" Linda stammered, fumbling for words. Well, it was implied." "Implied?" Sarah cut in. "On private, fenced property?" The judge's face hardened. "Mrs. Price, this isn't how HOAs work. You abused your authority and violated a homeowner's rights." By the end of the hearing, the verdict was crystal clear. The HOA was ordered to pay for all damages, plus $25,000 in emotional and legal compensation. And Linda Price was personally removed from her position as president. She glared at me as the ruling was read, but I didn't care. Justice had been served. A few weeks later, contractors restored my backyard better than ever. New grass, new fencing, even a small patio upgrade, courtesy of the HOA settlement money. The best part? Every time I looked out at my beautiful yard, I couldn't help but smile, remembering the chaos that started it all. Linda eventually moved out of the neighborhood, and the new HOA president actually apologized to me in person. As for me, let's just say, the next time someone wants to throw a wedding in my yard, they can pay full venue rates.